Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSP Magazine. You're listening to a new The Hacker Factory podcast with hacker maker Phillip Wylie. You're about to discover what the role of a professional hacker entails, the different specializations it holds, and what it takes to learn and become one. Enjoy the conversation as Phillip and guests unveil the secrets of professional hacking, a mysterious, intriguing, and often misunderstood occupation. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hacker Factory podcast. I'm your host, Phillip Wylie, the Hacker Maker. And each episode I have a unique guest sharing their story of how they got into offensive cybersecurity to hopefully motivate you and give you some ideas of how you could get started in the industry. And so this episode, I'm happy to introduce my friend, Jeremiah Rowe. We met not long ago, and we kind of actually this week co-presented at a financial services conferences. So he's got a really cool story, has a lot of great experience, and I hope that his story and wisdom will help you on your path. Welcome, Jeremiah.
Hey, Phil, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure being here, and certainly a pleasure getting the opportunity to work with you on anything. It's been a blast from my experience in the industry so far, and certainly look forward to helping any of those viewers you have as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining. If you wouldn't mind, some of our viewers are kind of new to the industry, our listeners, so maybe you could share about yourself, how you got started in the industry.
Yeah, so buckle up. It's a bit of a train ride. I first got started in the industry kind of on accident. In a way, I definitely shaped my path to go into offensive security, but let me rewind. So I come out of the Marine Corps. So I went into the Marine Corps out of high school, right here from Texas, as I know you're from the area. Joined the Marine Corps, went for 4 years, got out, came back home, and was doing that sort of transitional thing where I'm like, I have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. And so I start looking for work, and I get a job doing mall security for a bit, and obviously loved it. Viewers can't see, but I'm kind of rolling my eyes there. I then transitioned from that into being a dock supervisor for UPS Freight, actually right out of Irving here. So Irving, Texas, there's a big, huge UPS Freight hub. And so you can think of it like each location in the United States has these kind of central hub where all the packages go to, and then it gets sent out from a distribution perspective from that hub. And one of the bigger ones is down here in the DFW area, right outside Irving, where the old Cowboys Stadium used to be. And I was a dock supervisor there for a bit, so that means like working in the Texas heat, in the Texas sun, no AC, hanging out on the dock, sweltering inside of that because it just kind of holds that heat underneath the canopy. And so my job was going out and trying to identify any freight that might have been lost. And so I would walk the dockyard and open up every single trailer of the hundreds of trailers that were in that yard looking for any lost freight. And, obviously it's highly dynamic work. Walk to a new trailer, open a door, check, nope. Walk to a new door, open the door, check, nope. Walk to a new trailer, on and on. So I knew I had to get out of that work and figure out what I was going to do with my life. And so one of the other things I did was I was a tower operator, so a tower climber. I don't know if anybody's ever seen those YouTube videos online where you watch those individuals with sort of packs full of tools and they're climbing up the towers. to work on, various components that are on the tower. So in this area, we worked on things like monopoles, which have the cell phone transponders on them, receivers and transmitters, and then we would also work on some of the stuff down in down south here that have the big FM transmitters on them, the 1,500 foot towers in South Dallas. And so what a lot of people don't think about when they think about these towers and climbing them and working on them is those things move. They don't stay still. You're climbing them and they're wobbling. And so if there's any kind of good wind that happens, it's gonna be unnerving. And I'll tell you real quick. If you think you're not afraid of heights, go do a tower climbing job for one day, and that will tell you whether you're afraid of heights or not. There's another story there which I'll skip, but it's a funny one for sure. And so after doing all of this kind of manual labor and trying to figure out what I was going to do, I kind of realized I've got to do something different. I don't know what it is. So I took about 3 months off work. Luckily, I had people around in the area to help support me during that time, and I took some time to reflect on what it was I was going to do moving forward. And I'm like, hey, I want to get into technology. I want to get into doing IT work. And so I didn't have any experience professionally doing that. And so I decided that I was going to go try to apply for a bunch of jobs. And when you know it, I didn't get any of them. So I went to go apply for a job at Geek Squad, and I happened to get that. So my very first quote unquote IT job was working for Geek Squad at Best Buy out here in Irving, Texas, just off of 635. There's a Best Buy right over there that used to be by, I don't know if there's a Fry's still over there or not, but that was one of my favorite stores. Super bummed when it closed, by the way. There's a Best Buy over there, and that's where I first started. But rewind from when I was a kid, I've always been enamored with technology. I've always loved the challenge of it. It's always been a huge puzzle for me, and trying to figure out how things operate, how things work, all the interconnectedness of it. And so when I first got my computer when I was younger, the very first computer I ever got had Windows 95 on it. Couldn't tell you the model, but I spent every waking moment on that thing. We didn't have internet yet. This is back in the day when you still had those CRT monitors. And so cathode ray tube. And there were no LCDs back then, or if there were, it wasn't, I couldn't afford them. And so in order to get on the internet, I had to go to my public library to get on the internet. And so after working on my computer and then doing some hobby related stuff on the public library computers, I ended up doing something at the public library that I shouldn't have been doing, which was sort of stealing source code from other websites and making my own kind of website that most 12-year-olds shouldn't be making, and got banned from the library for about a year. And so that took my internet privileges away. But I've always looked at it as a hobby. I never really looked at it as an opportunity to have that as a job. And so, fast forward again to where we were just at. Once I realized hey, I could kind of do this as a job, I was all in, and I kind of started at that point.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I've been to that Best Buy. It used to be right down from where I worked at in Irving. I worked for a mortgage company for quite a while, and one of the last couple Windows computers that I owned, I bought from that Best Buy. It was a Gateway Tower. My first flat panel monitor, going from CRTs.
Yeah.
So that had to be early 2000s. This is before it was, early 2000s.
Yeah, those CRTs, man, they were so they all had the flicker rate and they had the rounded perspective on them, and it's funny, like you never question what you got at the time. you're like, oh man, this is so great. I love it. It is what it is. And you don't really question sort of, but you look back at some of that stuff now. If you find a pristine CR2 or CRT monitor and plug it in and try to go work off of it, you would probably have a lot of issues even trying to work from it, just because of the distortion of how things are put onto the screen. And it's so vastly different than what we have today.
Yeah, what's amazing at the mortgage company is that a lot of the people that worked in the mortgage, worked in IT there, and then later on into security. But a lot of the different mortgage processors and stuff, they had like the 20-inch or 24-inch CRT monitors. And those things were kind of a pain for the help desk guys to carry around, or when we're moving desks. Those things are pretty heavy, and they're humongous. Those monitors were.
It's actually good you raised that. So that's kind of, after starting at Best Buy, I then migrated over to getting my first job in technical support. And it was at another company over here called You Move Free. Started working for them for a bit, and I worked as their technical support representative, again out of Irving, Texas, Las Colinas area, and was there for a couple of years, almost 3 years. And during that whole time, I started going to school, getting my A+ certification, my Net Plus certification, started looking at Security Plus stuff. And that's when I really started trying to figure out in the industry what it was that I wanted to narrow in on. Because at that point, I'm like, I just want to do tech stuff. I just want to play with cool tech things. And I had no idea what it was that I really wanted to do. There was another kind of pivotal moment while I was working for You Move Free. I had the opportunity to interview for another company out here, getting onto their network operations team, and totally bombed that interview because I had no networking experience. I didn't know anything about it at the time. But I just remember thinking that was one of the coolest interviews I'd ever had. We went into their server room, and they asked if I could strip down a Cat5 Ethernet cable and then build a new one up. And I'm like, nope. And they're like, well, if we show you how to do it, will you be able to do it then? And I'm like, I can certainly try. And so they did. They stripped some Cat5 down and then put it into the new Ethernet clip and ran it in and stripped all the little stuff down and cleaned it up. And they timed it. And so they gave me the tools, and I did it. And I tried remembering the color-coded sequence, like seeing it for the first time ever. I got 2 of them wrong. And went through that whole experience. And I just remember walking away after the fact, like, 1, knowing I'm not getting that job, but 2, thinking, oh man, there's so much more to this field that I've just not even touched on. And that kind of motivated me to really try to figure out what it was I wanted to do. So I had been introduced to coding, and I had been introduced to conducting hardware repairs. One of the very first hardware repairs I've ever done from a soldering perspective was on one of those old desktop units. They're traditional desktops, right? So you've got your towers that generally would sit on the floor, and then you've got those kind of square 3 by 8, 3 by 9 sort of desktop units that used to sit on the desk but underneath your monitor or something. HP used to make quite a bit of them. Anyways, you open those up, they got a small form factor, and you pull back some of the riser boards onto the motherboards, and that's where all the components are plugged in and all the cables kind of shove in underneath. Well, I remember we had one, so basically I had no budget, and I had no ability to even request new things. And so what we did have, I would have to figure out a way to fix it. If I couldn't figure out a way to fix it, then we would get something else that was also used again. But I remember I had gotten some soldering stuff, and on this particular unit, the fan just kept blowing and blowing and blowing and just wouldn't stop. And it was just this loud hum. And after hours of research, I figured out, I narrowed it down to this little, oh crud, can't even think of what it's called, a capacitor that was on the motherboard itself. And the top of the capacitor was bubbled over. And so it was a bad capacitor. So I shut it down and soldered off the capacitor and then soldered a new capacitor on of the same model and type and everything, and kind of hoped and prayed that it would work. Luckily it did, and I turned it back on, and that fixed the fan issue, and I was like, explosions in my head, like, holy cow, this is so cool. Well, fast forward from there, we migrate from here to California. And so I when I was in the Marine Corps, I'd already lived in kind of California before. This time, migrate back to California with my family and go to work out there. And I get hired on at YP.com for a bit, and working at YP.com in their network operations center for a little while. And then a job came open in information security on the InfoSec team, and got a job. Well, I applied for it, went in for the interview, and the manager just kind of looks at me and he says, since you work here, you obviously will get a little bit of inside baseball here that nobody else gets, which is, I'm going to throw this down and you take a look at it and you tell me what you can answer out of these packet full of questions that we ask all of our candidates. And I'm like, crap. And so he kind of sets it down, and I flip through it. And it's all, information security focused, CISSP stuff focused, and questions around what you do from policy compliance all the way up to, the various domains inside of CISSP. And so it was a large packet. And I'm reading through there and I'm like, I have no clue. I could probably answer half of these. And at that point, I'd already been working on the network operations team for YP for a bit. And so he's like, okay, he asked me a couple questions. He's like, look, quite honestly, why should we even hire you? Like, what makes you different than anybody else? And I remember that. And I remember sitting there and I'm like, I think a lot of people would probably do a good job here. But there's not a lot of people that have the same background that I have and maybe aren't as hungry for knowledge and seeking this information as I am. And I bring, direct Marine Corps experience. I've got leadership that I've built up from there. I've got drive, motivation, and determination to try and excel in my career, whereas others may not necessarily have that. And so even though I may not know what a lot of this information is currently, I can always go figure it out. I can always get you an answer, and I can always dig to find the right way to go. And so he's like, thank you for taking the time to do the interview. I walked out of that thinking that I had totally bombed the interview. About 3 hours later, I get a call and got the job offered. So that's when I first got into InfoSec. Weirdly enough, there was another opportunity that was presenting itself during that time. And this is really unique to kind of California. At some point during that time, so I used to ride a motorcycle out there, and I was riding back from work one day and happened to see some auditions for this new reality show that was coming about in LA. And I'm like, I could go blow a couple minutes auditioning. So I go into downtown LA, or it's over by Hollywood. So it's kind of, catty corner to downtown, and drive in, and I wait in line, and the line wasn't too long. And we go through, and the show was called NBC Strong. And so I looked at the premise of it. It's basically like, taking professional trainers and having those professional trainers work with people, just everyday people who aren't, professional trainers from an athletics perspective, and getting in better shape and doing a lot of challenges and stuff like that. So I'm like, that'd be kind of fun, especially since, I had time in the Marine Corps and felt like I could accomplish whatever they had going towards a physical perspective. And so I wait and go through the interview, and we get through that, and I end up getting a call back. So fast forward to when I'm getting the job offer for the InfoSec job. at the same time, I'm also getting the final preparations done to be a cast member on this reality show for NBC Strong. And I had already cleared it with my other job, my other boss that I was coming from in the NetOps, the network operations team. And they're like, yeah, you can take 3 months off. No worries. You can come back, still got your job. Big deal. It's a really cool opportunity. And so we'll totally support you in that. Just they had a really large team, and so they were cool with it. Well, our new InfoSec team only had about 4 members in it. If you think about that, the size of YP.com, so YP.com was a $2 billion organization, and they had 4 people on their InfoSec team. It kind of also goes to show how many people used to think about prioritizing cybersecurity as well. But I digress. So I've got this dilemma. Do I go to the InfoSec team, or do I go in my Hollywood dreams and become a huge Brad Pitt actor, star guy thing? Obviously, I'm not Brad Pitt, and I didn't think that I would have any sort of guaranteed opportunities or moments, and so I made the decision to go ahead and move forward with my InfoSec side, because when I went to my boss, my new boss, he was basically like, hey, it's a really unique opportunity. Unfortunately, we are so short-staffed and have so many burdens on our plates that we can't, go another 3 months without having somebody here. And so he's like, if you do go that route, you may not have the job when you come back. And he's like, really sorry about that. So I decided to go ahead and make that choice to do the InfoSec team. And it was the best choice I could have made, because I learned so much, both from that boss, from that team. That's where I got my OSCP. That's where I first started training to go into the offensive side of cyber, and really had the time to focus on learning these unique skill sets that are required in penetration testing. And then later, after I left that team, went to Booz Allen and worked on their red team, and then started developing the skills that are required for working on a red team. How do you live off the land? How do you go sort of low and slow? How do you set up a botnet inside of an organization? How do you pivot from one computer to another, utilizing what's on those computers as a modus operandi to continue forward without alerting the blue team that you're there? And then working in concert with a blue team throughout the whole process, saying, do you see me now? And they're like, no. Do you see me now? No. Do you see me now? Yes, got you. See you now. And then going back through trying to figure out all the different kinds of traffic that you would generate from that point forward, so that they can develop indicators of compromise off of it. So it's a really unique experience, and it's kind of my background ultimately. And then I transitioned over to SYNAC at some point throughout there.
Very cool. Interesting to hear your background, but it's kind of interesting too because I knew you had shared you were from the area, but it's kind of wild that you worked at one of the same Best Buys I used to frequent, and the Fry's you mentioned over there, they actually closed. They closed all the Fry's in our area, but that was one of my favorite places to go. We'd go there a lot of times during lunch.
I love that place, man. It was the best. Out where I'm currently at, there's like a micro center. So I'm out in the Virginia side now, just outside DC. And everybody raves about Micro Center and how awesome Micro Center is. I'm like, you people have no idea. Like, Fry's is the thing and is the place. But yeah, man, I used to hail right outside of Plano over here. I went to Pesh. So Plano East Senior High is where I got my where I finished off my senior year.
Oh, very cool. So, a lot of our listeners are people trying to get started in the industry, and your story is a great example of how you got in. What advice would you give to someone that's wanting to get into offensive security?
Oh, yeah. If you are listening to this and you're focusing on cybersecurity already, you've already sort of accomplished half the battle, right? And in narrowing down or identifying kind of what it is you're interested in. I had no clue. I didn't really have any mentors. From my memory, the cybersecurity space or cybersecurity landscape that is today was not then. what was that? Goodness, 15 years ago, it was just not the same. And when people would try to, like, if you wanted help, you kind of just like had to know a guy that lived in a basement that knew a gal that went to this, and it was like a weird breadcrumb trail of oh yeah, they kind of do some hacking, but they may not speak to you because hashtag NSA. And so I was like, I don't know where to even get started here, really. So I went a huge roundabout way of getting to where I wanted to go. So my advice for individuals is you do not need to go in a huge roundabout way like me or like you, Phil, or like others did to get into this space and be successful in this space. Partner up with a mentor. Do some searches online for InfoSec training, for cybersecurity training, for OffSec training, for whatever it is you want to pay attention to or focus on, and then come to some of the conferences, come to some of the shows, get plugged in to those things that are happening around your area, and become more and more part of the community. Because as that good old adage sort of says, a community can make easy work of a lot of work. Or I don't know, that's a weird adage. But ultimately, leveraging more people can help you get things done, right? Crowdsource your own education effort as much as possible and use their expertise. I know Phil, you do some awesome stuff with helping provide insight to people that are trying to find unique ways of tapping into the industry. And I would say, Phil's a great resource. Jumping in and really just kind of leveraging those individuals who've already kind of paved the way a bit and figuring out the best way that they've done it. And if there's an easier way for you to get started, because there is, you know what I mean? Focusing on unique areas. So I think the OSCP is obviously a great start, but if you've never had any experience there, then that might be a bit more advanced than you want to start with. And so there are great free resources available from Udemy, online, from other various aspects like Damn Vulnerable Web App and Damn Vulnerable Mobile App, and tons of things that have been developed on GitHub repos that you can download and work off of from a vulnerability perspective. And there's various bug bounty programs out there that you can also participate in to try to learn and refine your skills as you move forward.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I like that you shared the part about you don't have to go the same route we did. You don't have to spend all this time in IT and to get into the role you want to get in. I had a couple people recently message me on LinkedIn and saying, they've had people tell them I need to start out with Blue Team or either start at help desk or desktop support before I can, become a pen tester or a red teamer. And that's not true.
Yeah.
I think based on my experience, and you tell me what your opinion is, I think a lot of these people are trying to mentor and help, and they're sharing their opinions. And because this is the way they gained that knowledge, they think that's the way everyone has to. Yeah, no,
I completely agree with that, right? Like, look, if someone went and retraced the same route that I took, do I think they would do well? Well, if they've got the same kind of mindset I do, then I feel like they would do well. Is it beneficial to go and do blue teaming before you hop in a red team? Absolutely. Is it required? Not at all. Will you get more insight, acting like a defender before you ever hop into the offensive side? Yeah, you'll get tons of experience. You'll be able to work from things that defenders are looking for. It's kind of like doing pre-reconnaissance before you start jumping in and doing offensive reconnaissance, because the more you know about the people you're looking for, is the same concept that people know or utilize today. So know your enemy, right? So if you're on the defensive team and you know your enemy, then you can come to the offensive team and also know your enemy, which is the defensive side. And so you would know some of the things that they're looking for and how to avoid those things. You don't have to do that, though. You can kind of learn that in concert with your training from offensive perspectives. And you can get that from experience in operating in the field as well. And so you can save a lot of time just by coming in and honing in and focusing on and getting a mentor and focusing on the particular portions that you really want to learn about. So if that's defensive in the blue team side, awesome. I think there's a huge talent gap shortage on that side too. There's some really cool, unique opportunities from the defensive blue teaming side that just, aren't highlighted today. Everybody wants to do the offensive stuff. Again, I'm on the offensive side. I'm a bit biased. I love it. But at the same time, there's some cool stuff happening on the defensive side, on the blue side as well. And so there's a huge talent gap across the industry, regardless of whether it's offensive or defensive.
Yeah, I agree with there's some cool stuff on the blue team side, because a lot of people like threat intelligence, threat hunting, incident response. Those are some really cool areas to work in. And I think really it's kind of good for people to kind of evaluate the different disciplines within the industry, go to some conferences like you mentioned, go to conferences, sit in on some different talks and get some ideas of different things. I mean, you get some ideas on the way some offensive professionals work and stuff as well, but to get an idea of what the defenders are doing is good.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, in addition to those talks, I know there are local sort of DEF CON groups that get together as well in various areas. And that can be, you jumping into a community and then them helping you to introduce you to the community. And then, like, in my area, there's a thing called Nova Hackers. And that's sort of a small little regional group. It's not necessarily associated with DEF CON, but the premise is training, educating, and helping others learn how to present and talk and how to go through proof of concepts and teach others in the industry about this as well. So the premise is at Nova Hackers, you basically come in to the Innovation Center, which is out in Reston area, Herndon, Reston area, and a group of folks get together. We all kind of sit into this meeting sort of presentation room, and there can be anywhere from a handful of folks to a large crowd. Obviously, not so much large recently, but still, back when everyone was still going out, you could get quite a few people there, and someone presents. And so I think the policy there is like after your second or third time, like it's kind of your turn to present because you're the noob, right? But it also helps you come think about things from a training perspective. Like the moment you get up and try to teach someone else how to do something is the moment you're going to realize whether you know what you're talking about or not. And it's really good practice as well. It'll help you fully understand a topic more in depth than you would have otherwise, because you work through those promptings of teaching. And so you get in there and you do a talk and you present to this group of individuals, and they kind of ask you in-depth questions and how you got there and what made you think of this and what kind of perspectives were you focused on and thinking about. And it could be whatever project you want. We had a guy that did physics that came and was still interested in this part of the community, and he presented on some mathematics that he was working on. There was another guy that came and presented, a mathematician who felt like he had solved the equation P equals NP, which to put it in more direct terms is the traveling salesman problem or equation. So essentially, if you are trying to get to point, FDGB on a map in a linear fashion, starting with A and ending with F, how do you get there quickly? And what's the most efficient route from a mathematical perspective for you to take? And in order to be able to solve that, obviously exponentially across the board through a whole series of numbers, what's the most efficient route for you to take? That is a huge processing overhead from a computational perspective with servers and processors and capabilities, right? And so the traveling salesman equation, P equals MP, is a really well-known sort of mathematical problem in the realm of mathematics. Now, I'm not a mathematician. I just happen to know about it because he did a really good presentation. So join those small groups and try to figure out, how you can plug in and present on stuff and really dive in,
Yeah, just wanted to kind of emphasize how important that is, because I've seen people in our community. One of the things when I mentor people, I really encourage that. I witnessed someone at our Dallas DEF CON group did a talk on malware analysis, was a recent college grad, and just so happened a hiring manager from Citigroup was in the audience and asked for his resume.
Yep. That's awesome.
He went through his technical interview pretty much right there. He kind of proved what he knew, and he proved he had good presentation skills. So,
yeah. I knew a guy at a Citigroup that used to work over here in this region. Funny enough, over in the Las Colinas area, Citigroup has some of their technology offices, or they used to.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do over here, but
they still do.
Yep. Oh, awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, one of their campuses was like right over near where the mortgage company I used to work for was at, because we were like the first one in that area, because the company was First Horizon Home Loans. We eventually got acquired by MetLife, by MetLife Bank, but we were over there and the road was called Horizon Way after the mortgage company I worked for. So we were like one of the first ones in there. And then Citigroup came in a few years later, but they got a pretty good sized campus over there, over off 635.
Yeah. They've got a big campus over there. They had a little smaller campus off of sort of the Las Colinas sort of area that was off 114, in between 114 and 635, kind of, I guess. Yeah, pretty cool area. They did their technology stuff. They had their InfoSec team that worked out of there, and I knew a couple of folks. One of the guys is now actually the director of federal services for FireEye. So, really cool guy. He lives out in the area. He's part of the InfraGard community, which is another kind of cool thing to plug into if you want. If you're not familiar with it, InfraGard, they've got some local stuff that happens out here too.
Well, we're getting down towards the end of the show, and I would like to thank you for joining. It's been great to hear more about your background and some of the stories you shared and the wisdom for our listeners.
At this point, folks, we've reached the end of the joke. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been a blast. Thanks, Phil. I've had a blast, man. Thanks so much. It's always fun.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Hacker Factory podcast with Phillip Wylie. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share itspmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.